This is G-Free Radio. Here's your host, Peter Stewart.
Hello, I'm Peter Stewart. Welcome to episode 52 of the world's only weekly G-Free podcast. We call it the G-Free Radio Show, and this is what we've got lined up for you in this week's episode. Two lots of big news coeliac-wise out of Australia this week. First, that researchers there have discovered a trigger for the disease, and second, that the country's support group is backing a push to relax their gluten-free standards. We tell you what's going on. Christine Bailey is a British-based qualified nutritionist, TV chef and presenter. She's a food and health consultant and freelance journalist. She specialises in food, health, fitness and nutrition. She's written a dozen books specialising in allergy-free support. She gives one-to-one support on digestive and autoimmune disorders, both at her clinic in Berkshire, just outside London, and the world-famous Harley Street in London. Great advice on nutrition and bowel health this week. She answers the quandary question, if whole grains are generally good for the human being, but we gfree-ers can't eat wheat, rye, barley and oats, where can we get those important minerals from instead? It's been a bit of a breakthrough week for gfree-ers in the UK. We have news that 4 UK high street chains have extended their gluten-free options. Listen in to find out who they are and what they're doing. Also, on the world's only weekly G-Free podcast, hear about the world's first allergy-free airline. And it's not some small carrier that only operates out of a small town airport every Thursday and goes to a place that you don't want to go to. No, it's a reasonably big name as well. We've got news of some coeliac events that are taking place around the world over the next few days, our tweets of the week, and another cook-along recipe with our good friend Deborah Thackeray from Gluten-Free Living and Baking. Boy, oh boy, this week, the world's best G-free chocolate brownies. All that and more to come in this week's show of the G-Free Radio Show. Hello, I'm Peter Stewart, as the lady said. We'll start off with health news. Oh, before we do that, also, I didn't mention just there, we've got a whole new range of snacks, of pocket-sized snacks, which have come to the market in the last couple of days that we've been sent. So we'll be reviewing those on the programme. If you're familiar with 9 bars in the UK, this is what we're talking about, a new range from 9 bars. If you're outside the UK, 9 bars, it's a kind of a trail bar, I suppose you might say. It's a kind of a flapjacky kind of thing, lots of nuts and seeds and fruit, no chocolate, no nasties, and great for us G-freeers. We'll tell you about those in a few moments' time. First of all, as I say, start off with that health news. And researchers in Melbourne, Australia, have discovered what they're calling the trigger point for celiac disease, unlocking for the first time the molecular interaction the body makes on launching its immune response against gluten. This was widely reported in the G-Free press this week, and more widely than that in the general news as well. This I'm taking from the heraldsun.com.au. By uncovering how the toxin, the wheat protein gliadin in gluten, causes the reaction, researchers hope this will lead to better treatments and better diagnostic tests for the 1 in 70 Australians with the incurable disease. 1 in 70, guys. Usually around about 1 in 100, 1 in 30, I've heard. 1 in 70 sounds quite low, doesn't it? And it's also estimated that a further 80% of cases, or 330,000 people down under, remain undiagnosed from that lifelong condition. Now, what they've done is quite complicated, and if you do a little search for Melbourne and celiac disease, and also Monash University, they seem to be the people behind that, Monash, Monash University, the University of Melbourne, and Leiden University in the Netherlands. Hey, we were talking about the Netherlands last week, weren't we? Leiden University, Leiden. They actually carried out the research. It is quite complex. They go into different talks about the different T cells and so on. So if you're really, really interested in all of this, we won't get bogged down in details at this particular juncture, but you can do a bit more research yourself if you'd want to. But suffice to say, at this particular point, that they have uncovered what they're calling a molecular docking mechanism. They say that, as we know, celiac disease is an immune response against gluten in which certain T cells interpret it as foreign and toxic, and they've got to fight it. And Dr. Hugh Reid from Monash University said their findings, published in the journal Nature, Structural and Molecular Biology, deciphered the immune response that occurs in 95% of celiac sufferers who carry one of the two genes linked to disease susceptibility. They say it's the first time we've been able to observe the actual triggering point of initiation of the response in celiac disease. We'd like to try to interfere with this interaction with therapeutics like a vaccine that could turn off the immune response. It all sounds quite positive, doesn't it, without kind of getting bogged down in too much science. Quite hopeful as well. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Usually, of course, if you're someone with celiac disease, you learn to keep your legs crossed. Dr. Reid said they're going to continue to work with a US biotech company. Here's a company we've heard of before, Immusan T, which was also involved in the study to develop a vaccine against celiac disease. Immusan T, they're, as I say, a company we've mentioned several times on the show before, so they're involved with this, as you can imagine. Talking about 1 in 70 with celiac disease, some of those undiagnosed. You can see, let's be totally honest, from the drug company's point of view, there's an awful lot of money to be made. If you don't think you're being bled dry by G-free companies and food producers at the moment, some of those reasons are perfectly understandable and acceptable because of the amount of infrastructure they've got to put into place with the new manufacturing methods and new machinery and so on, and the distribution chain. Boy, oh boy, you wait till the drugs companies get hold of us. You wait till the drug companies find out that more people should be diagnosed as celiac disease and then come up with a treatment for it. Then you'll know all about things costing the earth. Coeliac Australia, meantime, is backing a push to relax gluten-free standards. Now, this is something that we've spoken about before. This from smh.com.au. It's ironic, isn't it, that we're talking about another Australian company. So, it's 20 parts per million in the UK. It's 20 parts per million in most parts of the world. In Australia, it's been 0. So gluten-free has meant exactly that. Gluten-free, no gluten at all. And I know that there are some people in some parts of the world who would prefer it to always be that way. But the food standard for gluten-free products in Australia may be, and New Zealand as well, incidentally, hello to our Antipodean friends, may be relaxed to encourage manufacturers to stay in the market. Okay, this is a bit counterintuitive, but we have talked about this before, but it's risen its head again this past 7 days. Coeliac Australia says it's going to support an application being prepared by the Australian Food and Grocery Council to have the gluten-free definition modified by Food Standards Australia. It fears that meeting the existing standards of 0 will become so onerous, so tough, so strict, so harsh, that food manufacturers will just say, well, they'll just throw their hands up. Okay, we can't possibly make something completely 0. And, if it's got 1 part per million, frankly, you'll sue the ass off us. So that's going to be so tough. We're not going to bother. We're just going to chuck in as much gluten as we want and just sell it to the general market. We're going to opt out of this. That's what they're worried about. Penny Delsberger of Coeliac Australia says, our concern is that as the sensitivity of the test improves, it will impact on the ability. That's the thing, isn't it? The sensitivity of the test. It'll impact on the ability of manufacturers to confidently label their products as gluten-free. We might lose the term gluten-free altogether. An Australian Food and Grocery Council spokesman confirmed it's backing the new labelling standards, quote, because eventually no one will be able to claim their products are gluten-free at all. And nutritionist Dr. Jackie Barrett said existing labelling standards are unsustainable. Quote, our cut-off of what is gluten-free food has been driven by the improvement in lab techniques. We've ended up with this very strict cut-off, and the possibility is that it ends up cutting it right back and people don't need it reduced to that extent. That's what we've heard in the UK, across Europe, across North America as well. They're kind of strange, isn't it, relaxing the standards. It is the G-Free Radio Show. I'm Peter Stewart. On the way, we're going to be looking at some events which are happening around the world for the next couple of weeks. Also, talking about allergies, the world's first allergy-free airline, not just with food, but other things that they have on board a plane as well. And also, maybe you're going to be mentioned if you've highlighted a particular sassy, interesting, well-written, concise, brilliant, humorous, funny tweet in the past 7 days or so that you've alerted us to. You could be about to be mentioned on the G-Free Radio Show. So, the first of our two-part interview with Christine Bailey. As I said at the top of the show, I was really pleased to be able to clash diaries with Christine because, well, she's very, very busy. I'm just a little bit busy, but she is very, very busy indeed. I mean, nutritionist, TV chef, presenter, health consultant. She's a journalist. She's written a dozen books. And also she has a clinic both in Berkshire, which is a county to the west of London, and also, boy oh boy, in the world famous Harley Street in London as well. And she's got a particular interest, as I say, in nutrition, also bowel health. And, well, she answers the quandary question in this part of our chat with her. I asked Christine Bailey, amongst many other things, if whole grains are generally good for the human being, but we can't eat many of them, the wheat, rye, barley, and you know, oats, and so on to a certain extent. Where can we get those important minerals from instead? And I started off by asking Christine, when people come to her, how much do they already know about what might be wrong with them?
Some of them may have read something like wheat belly or grain brain or something like that, and then things just start falling into place and they think, oh, do you know what? I wonder if gluten is to blame. Others have gone through their doctors, maybe dietitians and so on, and still don't feel that they're getting the answers and therefore want some more rigorous testing. And now, thank goodness, we've got the Cyrix test here in the UK, which means that we've got a lot more robust gluten sensitivity tests out there and autoimmune tests. So that's very useful. Others may have a family history as well. And they're starting to think through, oh, is there a genetic link here? You know, so-and-so in my family has just been diagnosed. Maybe we ought to get ourselves checked. And like, as you probably are aware, it can take many, many years from the first signs and symptoms of a gluten sensitivity or celiac disease to someone actually getting diagnosed. But the damage is already being done. And that's one of the key problems, is that we still take an awful long time through the conventional means of diagnosing people with celiac disease. And as you know, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease. There is often a connection between having celiac disease and other autoimmune diseases. So I always look at my client's health history. And if I see, for example, that they've already been diagnosed with, say, something like Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid autoimmune disease, then I will always get them tested for celiac disease because there is such a strong correlation between the two. And so, you know, I do often get people that may not have considered gluten to be a factor, and then we send them off for testing.
And those tests are so much better, so much more reliable, so much easier to come by nowadays as well, aren't they?
They are, and that is such a bonus for clients as well. I mean, the one thing to say to listeners out there is that if you feel that gluten is an issue, please seek support before you start tweaking with your diet, because most of the tests to look for antibodies or tissue damage, which we call transglutaminase, you have to still be eating gluten. And one of the difficulties faced by people is that they take themselves off gluten, they feel better, which is great, but they want to know, is gluten affecting me? And the only way they can do that is to put gluten back in their diet, which we don't want them to do because it probably is damaging them. And so there's this quandary of what do I do? So I always encourage people to seek support first, get the test done, and then take gluten out your diet, and then see if it is making a difference while we wait for the test results to come back.
Now, quandary, that's a great word. I haven't used the word quandary for a long time, but I think that really fits in well with the next question as well, because you can get into a bit of a quandary, because I know you, I've seen some of your videos online and read about you and so on, and you're a great advocate of whole grains, but of course the quandary, there I am again, for celiacs is that whole grains are what's doing you harm in the first place. So how do you get the goodness that's associated with whole grains in a gluten-free diet?
And that's a very good point, actually, because one of the other things that we know, and this is just research-based, I do a lot of research looking at all the papers, and actually a new one's just come out, but one of the things we know is that celiacs, even once they've taken gluten out their diet, it can take many years for the gut to heal. And during that time, people will be malabsorbing, which means that they are more likely to be low in key vitamins and minerals. One of those in particular is magnesium. I mean, there's lots that can be low, but the reason I'm mentioning magnesium is often found in whole grains. And of course, as you say, if you are celiac, you will need to take out the gluten grains. So that's your wheat, your barley, and your rye. And obviously beware of contaminated oats. So you shouldn't be eating oats that aren't certified gluten-free. However, thankfully, there are other non-gluten containing grains, or seeds as we call them, that are equally or if not more nutritious. So quinoa, some people say quinoa, but it's a brilliant magnesium, calcium-rich grain or seed. And you cook it in the same way as rice. Whole grain rice, red rice actually, is very rich in antioxidants, anthocyanins, millet, buckwheat. All of these additional, what we call grains or seeds, can be suitable for some people on a gluten-free diet. They are gluten-free, but everyone is unique. And some people find that other, even if they're non-gluten grains, may potentially cause a little bit of upset. But they are completely gluten-free and are safe on a gluten-free diet. And those are very rich in what we call, they're nutrient dense. So you're getting a lot of nutrients for the amount that you need to eat. And then, of course, the other thing is, one of the things we do encourage people to do is to seek support, dietetic support, nutritional support. Do you need supplement? Do you need to have a bone scan if it was a long time since you've been diagnosed, because your absorption of calcium, magnesium would have fallen? What's your vitamin D level like, for example? You can get home spot prick tests, a little finger prick test where you can find out your vitamin D. That's crucial for bone health. It's crucial for autoimmune diseases as well. So there's lots of testing that you can do to really guide you into the key foods, and also whether you might need some supplemental support. But you can get sufficient nutrients by choosing some of the gluten-free grains, which also will give you the soluble fibre, of course, which you need for bowel regularity and bowel health.
And more from Christine Bailey next week on the programme as our two-part interview continues. You can follow her in the meantime at advnut on Twitter, ADVNUT. Why advnut? Because that's short for Advanced Nutrition, and that's the name of her website, advancednutrition.co.uk. OK, still to come. We have got the tweets of the week. We've also got that fantastic cook-along recipe from Deborah Thackeray. And this week, it's all about making the world's best, most sumptuous, delectable, moist on the inside, kind of brittle on the outside, that kind of crust that you have on a brownie. Boy, oh boy. I made them with Christine a few weeks ago when we went to one of her baking courses, which was really great fun. Anyway, her cook-along recipe, you can make it along with Christine a bit later on in the show. The show is the G-Free Radio Show. Okay, a few other things which have been around this week. First of all, let me tell you about the world's first certified allergy-friendly airline. It's Swiss International Airlines. They are introducing in May a number of ground and in-flight products designed to enhance the air travel experience for allergy sufferers. These innovations will include new food and drinks, new menu for lactose and gluten-free food, which is really, really good, along with the cabin interior changes. So obviously we're mainly concerned, aren't we, with the gluten-free food menu, but also other things as well. First and business class passengers will be offered pillows stuffed with synthetic materials rather than the down-filled version. They're going to stop the use of decorative flowers because of the pollen and so on. And also they won't have air fresheners, the artificial air fresheners that might cause nose and throat irritations. Onboard toilets will now feature soaps that are gentle on the skin. This is really good, isn't it? And you would expect it from a country like Sweden. Professor Torsten Zuberbier, director of the European Centre for Allergy Research Foundation, says the number of people suffering from allergies have been increasing throughout the industrialised world for several years. Over 30% of Europe's population are directly affected by one or more allergies, not to mention those indirectly affected, like their families. Yet only around 10% of sufferers get the right medical treatment, and the allergies are still often not taken seriously, even by the sufferers themselves. So well done to that particular company. It's Swiss International Airlines. I would suggest that if you've got a choice, and it's probably worth a bit of peace of mind to pay a few extra pounds, euros, dollars, yen, whatever your particular currency is, to go with that particular company. Got some really big news in the UK this week. First of all, let me tell you about 9 Bars. Full disclosure, 9 Bars have sent me some product to taste test. And don't know whether you're familiar with them. We've talked about them in the programme before. We have done. Where's your grammar? We have done some interviews with 9 Bar before, so scroll back through some of our previous programmes. 9 Bars produce some really, really tasty, useful, nutritious kind of, what would you call them? I referred to them earlier on in the show, didn't I, as a kind of trail bar. Kind of nuts and seeds and good stuff. There's no nasty stuff. There's no wheat. There's no chocolate in there, I believe. I don't believe there's any dairy in there. It's just good, honest food. And that they've done some more recently, black cracked pepper and some sea salt and chili flavour and things like that. Now they've brought out a slightly different range. I'm not entirely sure why they're particularly called breakfast bars, but heck they are. 9 Bar breakfast, slightly larger than the 9 Bars we've been used to. And let me talk you through these. We have, they are gluten-free and wheat-free, incidentally. Source of calcium and protein, 50 grams, cashew and cocoa. We've also got peanut and raisin. We've also got apricot and strawberry. So I guess these are breakfast bars because they've got a bit more fruit in them. You'd have to check out the nutritional information on the back for these. Inevitably, they're quite heavy in fat, and you know, you're an adult. Make an informed choice. That's what we would say. You don't just stop eating cake because it's, inverted commas, bad for you. It's a balancing act, isn't it, all through the day and so on, as part of a whole balanced diet and so on. And the one we've tried is almond and raspberry. Really well presented, nice packs. They're going to last for a long time. These arrived today, so I've only tried one so far for obvious reasons, and they last through until December 2014. So we tried the almond and raspberry one in the office a little bit earlier on, and that really tasty, really good. As soon as you open it up, you can smell the raspberry, really tasty. That would fortify you for a while during the course of the day, and as I said previously, they're really good for just popping in a pocket. If you've got a day trip, if you're going to be stuck in a car, if you've got something going on in the office, if you're on an aeroplane journey, something like that, pop a couple of those in your pocket because they don't melt. There's not many things you can get nowadays which will stay moist but aren't going to melt because they don't have cocoa in, they don't have chocolate in. So they're really, really useful. Good stuff. Thank you, 9 bars, for those. Incidentally, they'll probably cost about £1, which isn't cheap, but it is better than some of the other rivals in that particular range. But also, if you do get onto the 9 bar website, you can get a good deal on these. 9, that's the number 9, bar.com. If you're listening from outside the UK and you're thinking to yourself, I'd like to try those, they sound really good. Well, heck, if you're coming over to the UK, why don't you pop an order in, have it delivered to your hotel, yeah? And then you can pick it up when you arrive and you can take a box back with you. That's the way around that, isn't it? And if you've got anything that I should be taking back to the UK with me after a trip to America and the whole kind of Denver, Colorado, Yellowstone kind of area over the autumn period, the fall period, do let me know. It's gfree-radio@hotmail.com. Got some other news around this week. Marks and Spencer's, I know the Twitter sphere has been alight with this. This is a kind of upmarket supermarket, more than that really, isn't it? It's a clothes store, it's homeware, and it's really well known for its food, upmarket kind of stuff. Scotch eggs and quiches new to their range over the past week or so. If you're wondering what a Scotch egg is, if you're outside the UK, you're not familiar with that. I don't know, does that term travel? Do you know what a Scotch egg is, or is that a particular British delicacy? I was going to say English delicacy, but it's got to be British, isn't it? What with the word Scots in there, Scotch. Nothing to do with the drink. You're not going to get tipsy by having a Scotch egg. It's a hard-boiled egg. When I describe this now, it's going to sound really odd, isn't it? It's a hard-boiled egg which is encased in meat, in mincemeat, isn't it? Yeah? And then it's got breadcrumbs on the outside, and all of that is cooked. It's the kind of thing you might take on a picnic. They're good. They're very traditional. So Scotch eggs in Marks and Sparks, and also the quiches as well. The quiches we've got, because we were at Marks and Sparks the other day, and they're in the freezer for maybe a bit of summer picnic when the weather turns a little bit nicer. Okay, that's a couple of those. Costa Coffee, which is a chain coffee store similar to Starbucks in the UK. They've launched just one wrap. It's a chicken wrap, which is available. So well done to Costa. That's really good to know. So that's a high street coffee chain. Also, Tesco has launched egg salad sandwich, ham and cheddar ploughmans, chicken salad, carrot and hummus sandwich. I think we may have mentioned this a week or so ago. They're on Genius gluten-free bread. They're only in selected stores. And I say that, selected stores, with a bit of a wry smile on my face, because I have contacted Tesco to say, have you got a list of your selected stores? At time of recording, they have not got back to me with that list, but as and when they do, I'll make sure that's tweeted out. And Amy's Kitchen, who we spoke about last week on the programme, of course, with our interview with them. They've hit Asda cafes. So Asda is a supermarket chain, Asda owned by the people behind Walmart in the United States. So, so their chunky tomato soup, rice mac and cheese is there available at Asda. What else have we got going on over the past 7 days? Incidentally, if you spot something that you think we ought to be talking about or doing an interview about on the programme, do give us a shout. If you've written a particularly good blog and you think that should be mentioned as well, give us a shout. We'll take a look. We may get you on the programme to talk about it, give you a bit of publicity. That's what it's all about. We're all in this together, aren't we? Or any other thoughts on the show, the duration, the content, how often it's around as we approach our first birthday, do get in touch with you. Do get in touch with us, and we'd like to hear from you, is what I'm trying to say. gfree-radio@hotmail.com. On Twitter, we're at gfree-radio. Few other events taking place over the next few weeks or so as we take a look in the events diary. Heard from Adrian Benson, who's the group organiser for Hull and East Riding Support Group for Coeliac UK. Adrian, I love your auto-sig on the email you sent me, because you've actually written it's the Hull and Eat Riding Support Group, which is kind of appropriate. The York Gluten-Free Food Fair on the 10th of May, Saturday the 10th. It's tripled in size since it first started in 2003. Over 25 manufacturers, including the major producers of gluten-free food. Many local companies are taking part, and it all coincides with the Coeliac UK National Awareness Week, which starts on Monday the 12th of May. Adrian, thanks so much for getting in touch. Hope that goes really, really well. I know you had a few problems with a venue this particular year, so I'm sure that's going to go brilliantly. Would love to hear how it goes. Perhaps tweet us some pictures and so on that we can retweet for you. Also, our good friends at Feel Free Food. They've got an open day. It's by invitation only, and that's happening on the 2nd of May. So obviously I'm not going to tell you where it is because obviously we got an invitation, but you haven't. But it's really good to tell people that these things are happening. There's going to be some presentations, interactive session, a hot and cold finger gluten-free buffet lunch, launch of their new website, a Q&A session, goodie bags, snacks, and all sorts of things going on. So, Sally, hope that goes brilliantly for you on that particular date of the 2nd of May at 11 o'clock. And also, I must tell you about a few fantastic Facebook sites as well which are around, which you may want to get involved with, whether you're in the UK or elsewhere. So let me tell you about those. There are things like Celiacs in the UK, Celiacs Eat Out Too, and also gluten-free bargains and deals. A whole load of information which goes on there. If you spot something there and you think we ought to be talking about it on the programme, do let us know about that as well. And finally, in our diary for this week, let's tell you about a few more things which are going on over the next few days. The Gluten-Free Food Allergy Festival in San Diego, California. Making Tracks for Celiacs, love that, 5K. And the Gluten-Free Vendor Fair in Rochester, New York. Also, the Gluten-Free Expo in Toronto, Canada. There's another event, the Gluten-Free Vendor Fair in Merrimack, New Hampshire as well. So all those courtesy of simplyglutenfree.com. Thank you to our friends over there. And as I say, if there's something you think we ought to be talking about to help publicise your group and help combine, the gluten-free community around the world, do let us know. It's gfree-radio@hotmail.com. gfree-radio@hotmail.com then if you want to get in touch with us. And now it's time to introduce one of our many friends that we've made in the G-Free community over the past year since G-Free Radio has been going, and that is Deborah Thackeray. Together with her husband Ian, they run the Gluten-Free Baking and Living website. I say website, there's a whole stack on there. Various recipes and things to download and view and sign up for, like in fact their gluten-free baking courses that we went on and reported on a couple of months back. So scroll back into our free archives to hear a bit more about that. And I know Deborah is a big fan of the show, and Deborah, we're big fans of yours, especially when you bring us some gluten-free treats and also some gluten-free tricks for making those treats. So this time round we're going to be bringing you another of our kind of interactive recipes, because you can bake along with Deborah. This week, the world's best G-free chocolate brownies.
Hi, I'm Deborah Thackeray from Gluten-Free Baking and Living. I teach people how to bake gluten-free. People come on our courses through www.glutenfreebaking.co.uk, and I teach them how to make bread, cake, pastry and lovely, lovely scones. Today in the kitchen I'm going to show you how to make chocolate brownies. They're really, really easy. A gluten-free chocolate brownie is an absolute joy. You'll need 150 grams of 70% dark chocolate. You'll need to check the label because many of them now are produced in a factory that may handle gluten. You're also going to need 80 grams of coconut oil. That makes these brownies dairy-free as well as gluten-free. 180 grams of light brown sugar, 50 grams of ground almonds, 50 grams of Dove's Farm rice flour, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, 2 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence, and you can put into your chocolate brownie 60 grams of chopped pecans or dried cherries or more chocolate chips. It's entirely up to you. You're also going to need a 20 centimetre square tin which you've lined the bottom of with a piece of baking parchment. So what I'm going to do to start with is put my chocolate into a saucepan. So I'm breaking it up into squares, and now what I'm going to do is to put 80 grams of coconut oil into that pan with the chocolate. I've actually melted my coconut oil, but you can just dollop it out of the pot. Very gently melt these two together until the chocolate melts into the coconut oil. I wouldn't stir it, I just let the chocolate run into the coconut oil. Okay, so I've got my mixing bowl and I'm going to weigh out the brown sugar, 50 grams of rice flour, and I'm going to put some ground almonds in. I really like ground almonds in cakes. I think they add a moistness and a texture which is absolutely delicious. Half a teaspoonful of salt, because the best chocolate brownies have that slightly salt-sweet taste. It really works very well. Half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Give that a good stir now to combine. Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is beat my eggs separately because I want to add them bit by bit into a small bowl and just give them a little bit of a very light beat. Make a well in the centre of my flour mixture, and I'm going to start adding my eggs to that bit by bit. Meanwhile, I need to, from time to time, check that my chocolate isn't boiling. It just wants to be slightly melted. Right, let's go and see if the chocolate's ready. Oh yeah, that's fine. And I'm tipping the melted chocolate and coconut mixture into the mixing bowl. Measure out 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence. Tip that into your chocolatey floury mixture and giving that a good stir. Now this is a very gloopy chocolatey mixture. I really like coconut oil. It's a saturated fat, but it's a very healthy saturated fat with good anti-inflammatory properties. You can make stuff that's dairy-free, but you can do it without having to put margarine in, which has got a lot of additives. Beat the mixture well together until it becomes really sort of smooth and shiny. This is the point at which you can add whatever it is that you're going to put in. I'm going to add some pecan nuts. Fold the nuts in so that they're spread right throughout. And then I'm going to tip it into my lined tin. They're better slightly underdone. They should be fudgy rather than cake textured. So when these go into the oven, at that point where the mixture is set in the middle And if you put a skewer or a sharp knife in, it comes out clean. You need to get them out fairly quickly. You don't want them to cook beyond that point. They should be under rather than overdone. They usually take about 25 minutes to half an hour, but I would check them at about 20.
OK, nearly time to skedaddle. First of all, our tweets of the week. So let's have a quick look down our favourites to see which tweets, which set of 140 characters have caught our eye over the past 7 days or so. Very pleased to talk about the gluten-free self website, which they promoted that on Twitter a bit earlier on to us, in fact more than a week ago, to be totally honest with you. glutenfreeself.com. Some fantastic stuff there. I really love their photos, their pictures, their design is really, really good. So if you want to be inspired by that, then do give them a check out. Also Kimberly, K Hidden Angel. First batch of gluten-free cakes are made. Didn't get to try one as the new pup has eaten them all. Must be more careful. Absolutely, indeed. GF and AF Wellness Event have passed on a nice message to us. So really appreciate that. In fact, got another one here from Gluten-Free Sonia. You guys are great. You'll forgive us if occasionally we say things like that. Dougie, GF Dougie, made a really good comment, and we kind of have to go along with this, Dougie. If you like a tweet of mine, dear follower, please don't just favourite it, retweet it as well. Thanks, educate. Those couple of hashtags at the end. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. You know, we send out some really good stuff, hopefully, and if you like it, then we can understand that occasionally you do just want to favourite it, but if you can retweet it as well, it kind of helps the world go round. We try and do an awful lot of that ourselves. If we don't, please give us a prompt, give us a nudge, a point in the right direction. Poke us with a stick, and we will do that. Sometimes we forget. I appreciate that, but yeah, if you can retweet as well as fave, that'll be good. Also, Gemma Calendar wants a shout out. Gemma is based in London. She has a regular stall at Camden Lock Market for the paleo and gluten-free community. Camden Lock Market in London. What else have we got here? We've got some really great stuff coming into the show. And to our Twitter line. So it's at gfree radio is where you need to be sending things to. The gluten-free BITCH, yeah, we're adults, aren't we? That gluten-free bitch tweeted, Easter, the holiday where you have to re-explain your allergy to different family members all day long. Yes, it can be like that sometimes, can't it? Also, G-Free Laura, a friend of the show, how do you respond to the question, but what can you eat? Those kind of go hand in hand, don't they? So what is celiac disease again, and what can you eat? And then going, so can you eat ham? Yes, so long as it's not breaded. So can you drink lager? No, I can't, unless it's G-free lager. Can you drink cider? Yes, I can, because it's made with apples or pears. It's not, and so you go through it. Can you eat bread? Yes. Well, I thought you said you can't eat wheat. I can't, but bread can be made with other things. You know, it goes on and on, doesn't it? It's really good to educate, but sometimes it can get a little wearing, especially when you're in the office or when you're in a family meet-up or something like that. Oh, indeed, look at this. The next one here is Kenny Williams. Oh, hey, Kenny, who tweeted to us, my parents actually don't comprehend gluten intolerance at all. What about fruit? Can you eat that? Says Kenny. What else have we got going on here? Gluten-free is not about what you can't eat. It's about making what you can eat delicious. K. Paulo. That really is that really gets to the nub and the gist of things, doesn't it? Tracy Attridge tweeted something. A box of cookies, a box of biscuits that quite plainly says gluten-free, all butter lemon bites. And then on the allergy advice says that made in a factory that uses nuts and wheat. Well, as Tracy pointed out, that really does not conform to the standards for labelling in the United Kingdom. A couple more to finish off with, then I'll let you go for another 7 days, unless you want to keep listening back to the show, when we obviously encourage you to do that. Lots of clicks, please. Have a little look round at our archives, and they're always free, so have a little dig and delve around all of those. Oh, and don't forget that the recipe for those chocolate brownies is available on our show page as well. Jen Brown, who runs GF Kids Travel, she got her daughter in Yunnan in China to stand by a field of wheat and pulling a sick face, which was really funny, which we retweeted earlier on. You know what? I'm going to retweet that again as I speak, as we record the show, just to send that out again. That was really great fun. I really found that amusing. I did laugh. That was an LOL moment. It really was. Also, we've got something else here. Warburton's has rolled out gluten-free thins across Tesco Express. So that's really good. And also Amy Finan, another fan of the show. Amy, thank you for joining us and following us and so on over the last couple of weeks or so. Gluten-free crispy rice cereal don't snap, crackle or pop. I'm well disappointed. It's my first time eating them since being celiac. All I had in my head was Crispies. They don't make any noise. Oh, Amy. Don't forget, as we said in last week's show, there are many more companies that make Rice Krispie kind of breakfast cereal that aren't actually Kellogg's. Kellogg's usually do have barley in, which isn't wise to eat. So go for one of those other, perhaps supermarket-owned brands instead. And Amy, we'll cross our fingers they're as loud as you want them to be.
Follow us on Twitter. We're at gfree radio.
That's it. Please follow us on Twitter at gfree-radio. Contact us at gfree-radio@hotmail.com. Click through loads if you would and listen to all that archive material. There's a wealth of news and information to do with health, there's some fun stuff. There's a whole stack of interviews as well. And also don't forget to keep coming back here often during the week, because we post different bits of audio during the course of the week as well, which we'd love you to listen into and get involved with as we help spread the G-free word. Next week, we continue with our chat with Christine Bailey, the British-based nutritionist and expert on all things tummy-related. And also, we're going to be hearing from the G-free company that's been going for 20 years. They're celebrating their 20th birthday. They're one of the first in the world to be providing gluten-free foods for celiac. So hear their story and what they've got to say 20 years on about how the market has changed and how it's going to develop in the future. All that and more in next week's G-Free Radio Show with me, Peter Stewart.